Please accept our heartfelt condolences in your time of loss. I suppose these words are meant to comfort me. If they don't even come close to drowning out the echoes in my head. I still hear it. Every day I still hear the barrage of gunshots and the screams of my friends. Senseless. That's what makes it so terrible. There was no reason for it. They were just there. Their last thoughts were probably about the night before, some silly test they forgot to study for. And they were gone. I remember Mrs. Clark. She taught us about the people who changed the world. She told us of the struggles of Sojourner Truth and the heroism of Amelia Earhart. She taught us about our own possibilities. And now she's gone too. We sat in class and listened about those who challenged the world and brought change. I believed women like Sojourner Truth could see what was wrong and correct the status quo. I believed women could challenge the doctrine of men and become the heroes of the future like Amelia Earhart. But that's just history. Politics of the wealthy. Nothing ever really changes.
The future has a way of staying in the past if we let it in.
What?
Change comes from pain. No contented person ever made anything change. You have to lose something to want something to be different. Sometimes loss has a way of pushing us on. I have known loss in my time. It hurts to the quick.
Does it ever end?
Nah, it don't. Sometimes it fades, but if it is important, ne'er leisure entirely.
Then how do you go on?
You're old enough to feel, old enough to know something ain't right. When you know it ain't right, then you know you have to do something. That's how you move on.
You make it sound so easy.
No, child, life is a hard battle. If it weren't hard, it wouldn't be worth the effort. The important thing is not to allow life's light to be determined by the darkness around us.
I do feel surrounded by darkness. I fear it the most. I feel completely engulfed by it and helpless.
Use your fear. It can take you to the place where you store your courage.
Courage does have a way of popping up when we least expect it. And who might you be?
Amelia.
This is Amelia Earhart.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm Sojourner.
Sojourner Truth, I know. You made things possible for me.
Did I now? What might they be?
Amelia was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic.
The reports of my heroism have been greatly exaggerated.
How do you mean?
If you're talking about the flight in 1928, well, I didn't do much flying.
We studied about your flight. You flew from Newfoundland to Wales. It was a landmark flight. You made headlines worldwide.
It was all just a publicity stunt. I was just a passenger. Now, I do have to admit that the flight in those days was dangerous. 3 pilots had died within the same year trying to be that first woman to fly across the Atlantic. But my hands never touched the control the whole time.
Why? I always dreamt that people would someday be as free as birds. I never dreamt they'd fly like them.
What do dreams know of boundaries?
What about your solo flight in 1932? Vice President Charles Curtis said you displayed heroic courage and skill as a navigator at the risk of your own life.
Yes. Only Lindy had ever made the same trip. The 1932 flight made all things equal for me. I felt the flight proved that men and women were equal in jobs requiring intelligence, coordination, speed, coolness, and willpower.
It's the willpower that gets you through the day.
Just another name for being bullheaded stubborn.
I suppose it is.
It also helped that both of you were grown women at the time of your achievements. You were taken seriously by then.
I may have been grown, but I was a Black woman who had spent most of my life owned by men.
And my time, women weren't expected to wear pants and climb into a cockpit. We were up against the old guard. We had to get them accustomed to the unexpected. The unexpected then becomes what it really is, the inevitable.
Now it's your time. You be the unexpected voice. It's your generation that needs to be heard. Show them the change that is coming is inevitable.
Children are seen and not heard. Those who make the decisions don't even know we exist, and they do nothing to change anything. They just send letters.
What is it you're holding?
It's a letter the school wants me to read at the assembly.
Who's it from?
The president.
Of these United States? Oh, now that's something. Nothing more filled with privilege than a letter from the president. You know, I received several letters of accommodations from the President Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, that had to be something to read.
Oh, yes, indeed. I just wish I had been given the opportunity to learn to read. I would love to have heard his words in my head. Such an elegant speaker. I'm sure his writing would have been really something to read.
Why don't you read your letter for us?
Oh, yes, please do that. I would love to hear what a president of this time would say to a child who has survived so much pain. You get a real good measure of a man by the words he thinks are important enough to write down.
My heart and those of my family go out to you. I cannot imagine what you are going through at this time. Believe me when I say that the nation is praying for you and your family, and to all the families who have lost someone from this tragedy. Please accept our heartfelt condolences in your time of loss.
Not every president can be a Lincoln.
I suppose presidents aren't elected for their speeches anymore.
No, by money. And when something needs to be done, they ask who can pay them the most, and then they do nothing.
Those wise old men have been having our rights for so long that they think like a slaveholder, that they own us. I know that it's hard for them who have held the reins for so long to give up. It cuts like a knife. It will feel all the better when it closes up again.
Old men become too comfortable and complacent. You can't expect to change them. Leave them on the ground behind you as you change the world around them.
Yes, certainly easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. They are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. If there's no struggle, there's no progress.
I want to be in the struggle. I want to make them change. But what can someone my age do? I'm still in high school, barely a woman.
Barely a woman? Huh. I see a full woman, and if there's a first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down alone, then women today together ought to be able to turn it right back and get it right side up again. And them old comfortable men is asking us to do it because they take no action. So they best just step back and let us do what needs to be done.
The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Everyone needs a runway to start a flight from, but if you don't have one, grab a shovel and build one for yourself and for those that will follow after you.
Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns. No man can heed me. I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. I've borne 13 children and seen them all sold into slavery. and I became the first Black woman to sue a white man and got my boy back. It makes no matter if you are a boy, girl, man, or woman. What matters is who you are, and your actions define you.
I want to do something.
Use
not
what
sure
God
how.
gave you. Use your voice.
But I am only one voice. Who will listen?
You have 2 listening right now.
You must believe there are others out there who feel the same as you. Every choir starts with one singer. You start singing, and believe me, more will join in.
I don't feel like singing. When I'm not frozen with fear, all I feel is anger. Anger that one person with a gun destroyed so many lives. When I remember what happened, I get so angry.
Kill someone?
No. I don't know. Some days, all I feel is anger.
Anger can be good, a good starting point, but it never leads to positive change.
You've seen what most people won't ever see. Start from there. Start from what you saw. You saw the lightning and heard the thunder, and that was the guns. And then you heard the rain falling, and that was the blood falling. And when it came to get into the crops, it was the dead that was reaped. Make people feel what you feel. Make them see.
Every time I try, I fall apart. I can't even walk into school. I keep seeing her. As we were running, I see Jamie in front of me. I see her falling, bleeding. I didn't stop to help her. I just kept running.
It ain't your fault that you're a survivor.
I survived. I'm not a survivor.
You made it out of a great tragedy. You have friends that didn't. What is left is what you can offer those who no longer speak for themselves. What is left is what you can do for yourself.
It's not just what you feel from losing your friends that must be healed. It's a deep wound that can only be healed by taking action.
Haven't you listened? I am frozen with fear.
I am the seed of the free, and I know it. It may have begun with a moment, a word which grew to an hour, a speech, but it started with what I felt in my heart. I saw what needed fixing, and I set out to fix them.
It starts from where you are now. Not everyone who survives comes to where you are. You are here because deep down, you know something must be done. Something must change. This is the moment you are in now. This is the moment that has been offered to you. You cannot refuse it. Deep within you, there are no borders, just horizons.
Mm-hmm.
You have it in your heart to fly.
I believe you. I want to do something. Tell me how I can make anything different.
Tell us about your friend. Tell us about Jamie.
She was my best friend. She was kind and generous. She loved animals. Jamie wanted to be a vet.
She had a passion.
It was not just a passion. It was something deep inside of her. There was this dog on our street that was always on a chain behind a fence. All of us were scared of it. All of us except Jamie. He would growl and bark at anyone who came by his yard. Only when Jamie would walk by, he would just sit and wag his tail. It was almost as though he knew Jamie was different, not a threat.
She had a kind soul. She would have made a difference in this world. That's a great loss.
And now she will never be the wonderful person she was going to be. And I let her die to save myself.
No, that is not the place to go. You didn't pull the trigger or sell the gun or make it legal. That could have been you on the floor with her. You were just a little luckier that day.
I don't feel very lucky.
Well, maybe not yet, but you will see it someday. What matters now is what you do with it. And know that what you do must be out of kindness and not anger.
Mhm.
One kind action leads to another.
Kindness washes out on the world like a huge wave. It all starts with one individual drop of rain.
And a single act of kindness throws out all roots in all directions, and the roots spring up and make new trees. The greatest work that kindness does to others is that it makes them kind themselves.
Let individuals make the most of what God has given them, have their neighbors do the same, and then do all they can to serve each other. There's no use in one man, one woman, or one nation to try to do or be everything. It's a good thing to be dependent on each other for something. It makes us civil, peaceful.
We are not two fools who dream that changing the world is easy. We know it's not.
But you have to do the changing while the water is stirring. You got to step into the pool. I'm for keeping things going while things are stirring, because even if we wait until it's still, it will make take a great while to get going again.
You will find your place and soar above those who try to hold you down. Once you feel the rush of your destination coming towards you, there will be no one powerful enough to alter your course.
Of course, you have the right not to accept the inevitable. Many do. But when you find out just what any people will quietly submit to, you have the exact measure of the injustice and wrong which will be imposed on them.
What about those who would lobby against me, who would want to bury my words?
There ain't enough dirt or holes deep enough to cover the truth. You can feel safe in the midst of your enemies, for the truth is all powerful and will prevail.
It doesn't matter what others do. The only thing that will matter is what you do.
Look above you, sky. Those are the same stars, and that is the same moon that looks down upon your brothers and sisters, in which they see as they look up to them. You all share them. They don't belong to any one person. I know I'm going to be up there someday because I'm going to die. I'm going home like a shooting star. Our bodies may leave this world, but it's our deeds that keep us alive. Decide if your friend's death will be the ground or the stars. Decide if you want to be buried or fill the sky.
I will never forget the friends I have lost. I want their lives to mean something. I don't care as much about my life or being a shining star, but I do want to make sure that the world does not forget the tragedy of their deaths. I want them to live forever.
Now that's a start.
What is?
Your desire to honor friends, to make sure it never happens again. That's your voice, your message.
How do I make sure what I'm going to say is heard?
Well, I always felt the choirs are best heard when they stand.
You have to get some wind into those wings to get a proper lift.
Now what?
Now, just open your heart and get your brain working with your voice.
Shouldn't I start by writing something down? Didn't you write it down first?
Oh, no, honey. I just opened my mouth and the world just leaped out. Come now. You know what you want to say. Just let it go free. Look straight up there. These folks are desperate to have some freedom thrown at them.
This is not the time for heartfelt condolences. I am Tamara Domani. Today, I am standing for my friends who no longer have a voice.
when building the character, I was realizing, you know, there's a lot of like what she famously said, Amelia famously said in this, in a lot of her quotes and stuff, which I really like. But it kind of made me realize too, like just thinking about it, like on stage, what it would look like. And she's an image of Tamara. You know, she's an idea of Tamara.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, I think I was having trouble with going back and forth of being, you know, Amelia the human versus this woman versus Amelia Earhart. And just kind of finding the middle there. But at the same time, she really did speak like that. She, I mean, if you watch like interviews and stuff like that from her, she.
And I liked separating Amelia from Sojourner, and whereas Amelia will speak about things with references to flying and horizons, and then
Yeah.
Sojourner is I find the way that she spoke and a lot of the quotes that I found of hers were very poetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that difference. And for me, again, it was Amelia was kind of like the older sister,
Mm-hmm.
and then Sojourner was kind of the mother figure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're both trying to get Tamara to get to where she wants to be, but you're kind of doing it just slightly differently.
Right.
And I feel like, you know, Amelia is much more direct, and Sojourner is much more kind of comforting and, you know, persuading.
Yeah.
Right. So I liked that you both caught on to that and that you were able to get that out of the characters.
You know, also during Sojourner's time, women had to grow up quick. You know, you're 15, 14, you know, you're out there maybe having kids in the fields, planting, you know, whatever, 10. So she says she's 18, what can she do? I'm like, well, you know, in my day, we were already like, you know, when you married and had 4 kids. So just get your ass in gear, do something.
Sure. Yeah. And I think
really
it's all, and I think both your characters see that, you know, Tamara is struggling and she may be, you know, having these excuses not to do these things, but you see in her potential, and so that you're guiding that potential out of her.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you wrote that, you know, she didn't listen to us right away. She kept mentioning her doubts and her fears and that kind of thing. It's not, you know, and that's really what people do. It's like, I don't know. So yeah, that was good writing on your part to encourage her.
And I sent I sent a note to Marina, and I said I always thought of the Tamara character as someone with this knot in her stomach. And it's like she's struggling with what she wants to do, but also the fear of actually taking action and doing something. And it's not until you two lift her up and say, you know, stand and use your voice that knot goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So,
give her kind of permission in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of goes back and forth where it's like it kind of loosens up a little bit, and I understand what you guys are saying, and I see that there's a point to it, and yes, I should do something, but it's still it's difficult until the end where it's like, yeah, okay, I can do something.
And you're also dealing with the guilt of, you know, feeling guilty for not stopping to help your friend, and I think a lot of survivors probably have that, the guilt of being the survivor, and wondering why they survived and their friends didn't.
Yeah, if you're running in the streets from bullets or whips or horses or cars or something like that, and you see your friend you're holding their hand, they go down, you want to stop. Your other friend said, "Come on, let's go."
Yeah.
You're faced with a difficult choice.
Yeah.
And I guess I originally wrote this probably about 2 years ago, but as I was going through it and editing and listening, and I was thinking how much it applies to what's going on now. Also, it's sort of like people wanting their voice to be heard and wanting to do something to make change. So it was kind of interesting editing and then thinking about what was going on now and how it related to that.
Mm. I did this, I played Sojourner Truth a couple years ago with this woman who did a thing called Her Story. It's a history, Her Story. And we did it here in Hollywood, North Hollywood area. And she had all of the substantial women who were suffragettes on backstage, and had Sojourner come out and different people speak about their journey and what happened and how women got the right to vote. And that was really very interesting to do that as well.
Now, did they bring up the ideal that the suffragette movement was actually opposed to Sojourner Truth kind of being recognized and being part of that movement?
She had people like Katie Stanton and this Elizabeth, a lot of different women. I can't think of who they are right now. I think she might even had Amelia Earhart, but different people come on. She might have, but I think I was more supported.
Okay.
There was one woman out of that suffragette who supported me.
Okay.
And said, we want her to come up here and talk. So yeah, you're right, they did. They did not want me there.
Eleanor Roosevelt too.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
I think that's where the Ain't I a Woman speech came from, was that Sojourner actually had to kind of fight for her right to be there and stand there and say, well, ain't I a woman too? Don't I deserve the same things? Because it's, when I was doing a little bit of research on this, I found out about Sojourner and the suffragette movement. And because the suffragette movement was mostly white women, and mostly white women of, upper middle class status, they really didn't want to give Sojourner Truth. They weren't even thinking about, oh, we're going to include Black women in this also. And it was sort of like, you're actually fighting for the same rights, but you're fighting for the people who are saying they're fighting for your rights. So I thought it was kind of interesting that there were some women that were opposed to that. But
I have a Women's March calendar, and Sojourner Truth is this month, and it says "Ain't I a Woman" on it, and it's great. And she's and it's a great little image. Yeah. But I thought, I looked at it and I didn't even click, and I'm like looking at the script and I look up, I'm like, holy shit.
And Jules, didn't you say that you were doing something with Amelia Earhart?
I've always wanted to play Amelia Earhart.
Okay.
My dad's a pilot, and I grew up flying planes with him. And I actually have a little picture of me standing in front of a plane. I did a book report on Amelia Earhart when I was a kid, and so I'm standing in front of his plane with like the whole shebang on and stuff. And
wow, that's cool.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that I picked two actresses that had the experience of their characters.
Yeah. Well done.
I think that helped.
Amazing.
Wow.
You're right. I love that this is so just prevalent now. I think with everything that's going on, and that has been going on for quite a while.
Right.
I think it's a people finding their voice kind of thing. I think it's a very important thing. Do something to say. So,
Marina, what did you think about the ideal of playing a survivor?
Rough. Because I can see, all of the loss of potential in your friend, and just losing a friend to begin with I thankfully have not ever lost a friend, but I've come close a couple of times, and that's rough. So I can imagine what it would be like, or I don't know. I'm sure I can't even comprehend what some people go through as survivors. But it is, I think, especially like you were saying, in this time, in the times, what's happening around the world and across the country right now, it's really important to be able to find your voice, and that's hard to do.
Sure. Yeah. It was interesting how this story came the script came about too, because I was working with another group that's called Some Assembly Required in LA. And each month they get together and they get dares from their audience. So it's basically someone will write on a piece of paper, I dare you to write a story about, and they'll describe the story, and then writers pick out of a hat the dare that they're going to choose. And this dare was based on the ideal, I dare you to write a story where two female superheroes decide they're going to do it their own damn self. And so I went through ideas of how I was going to use that. And of course, the first ideal is, you know, like Marvel comic book superheroes, you know, women as superheroes. And then I decided, well, it doesn't have to be that literal, because there's been female heroes throughout history. And at this time, I think there had been a recent school shooting. And if you guys got the recording, that's where that intro recording is from. Yeah. So I was talking to my daughter about it, and I said, well, I'm kind of thinking I want this female survivor, and she's trying to get persuaded of what to do. And she gets visited by Joan of Arc and Amelia Earhart. And my daughter says, well, why does it have to be two white women? She says, I've just finished reading the book on Sojourner Truth, and she's had a lot to say and had a very interesting life. So I started going back and looking into that, and it definitely started to resonate. And so I'm glad that my daughter gave me some input into this. And the other thing that was going on at the time was, I think it was the Parkland shooting. And there was a young Hispanic girl who sort of became the speaker. And she said, go and listen to her speeches. And that's where the idea of Tamara came from, was from that young girl, sort of finding her voice to go out and speak about.
Incredible.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. You did a great job. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Stephen. Yeah,
All right.
this was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet both of you and work with you.
Yes, yeah.